We lost the video again. We're just going to continue with services and take a moment to welcome in all of the angels that are present on the screen, the angels and loved ones who are out and we are missing them, and we welcome their spirits in. Just thinking of who you want to invite into your space of Shabbat tonight. Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharit, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Noachem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Yireh Shalom, Malachi Hashalom. Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem L'Shalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Elyon, Melech Malachi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Feels really good at the end of a very full, challenging week to be able to come together. And Shabbat is a sanctuary, but it's not an escape. That Shabbat is not political, but it's the place where we begin to see with God's eyes. What is it like to look out on our world and on each other with God's eyes? As much as we can imagine that. With God's eyes, there is multiplicity, but there's not division. There's room for all the voices. And on Shabbat, we look out. We don't cover our eyes, but we look out from a higher place. Later on in the book of Exodus, when the Mishkan, the sanctuary, is about to be built, and the sanctuary is really this template for all the work, all the activity that we do in our lives. Before the sanctuary is built, there is the commandment to observe Shabbat. It's to say, when you move in the world, let it come from a place that sees with God's eyes. Let it come from a place that's connected to Makor HaBracha, the source of blessing. And our job, like our ancestors before us, is to be able to not only see with God's eyes, but to be able to speak out with voices of truth, voices of love, voices of compassion, like our prophets did before us. Every Shabbat that follows Martin Luther King for the last 8-9 years, we have worked with our 6th graders, our 7th graders on what's called the Prophets Gallery. Their main curriculum in religious school during 6th grade is to study the Hebrew prophets, to really identify what are those qualities of prophets, people who were connected to God and acted from that place, people who let their actions flow from a place of Shabbat. And so this service tonight will have some of our 6th and 7th graders getting to share with us some of the people around in the world, modern people, living and dead, that they have observed exhibit some of the qualities that they feel is part of that prophetic stream as shared by our tradition. So as you hear all of those, I invite you to relish in the quotes that they'll share and to really see it from a place of God's eyes, to see the wisdom and the beauty that comes forward, and to be able to reflect, how do we let Shabbat be the Makor HaBracha, the source of life for our lives. It's my pleasure to invite Shava and Delilah and Lilith to lead us in lighting Shabbat candles. Shava, for many years, we were teaching partners for the 6th grade in our Prophets curriculum, and she's been taking that leadership on her own for the last couple of years. So it's really our honor to have you honor us, Olander family, with the lighting of the candles.
Thank you. Go ahead. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen. So
if the
beautiful.
angels hadn't gathered with us when we sung Shalom Aleichem, they are definitely here with the lighting of the candles. So we greet Shabbat through Lecha Dodi, and the image of the last line of Lecha Dodi, Bo'i Kala, welcome bride, is really tapping us in to the imagery that our sages want to invite us into for Shabbat. When we are at a wedding and we see the bride come down the aisle, there is a feeling of such exaltation. There's a feeling that everything is good with the world, that this couple being married and this union happening and this expression of love is present. And the Kala, the bride in Jewish tradition, isn't just the woman herself, but she is carrying the energy. She is welcoming the Shekhinah, the feminine presence of God. The way that we touch into beauty in life, the way that we receive. And so the image is as we sing Lecha Dodi, and we bow when we say Bo'i Kala, we bow as we're welcoming that presence that knows that no matter what is swirling around us in the world, that on the deepest level, it's all right. Everything is just as it needs to be. Bo'i Kala.
Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala. Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala, Bo'i Kala. Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, ומשבת לכלה. בואי כלה, בואי
Even though we come to Shabbat with full hearts to celebrate and to sing out with joy, to sing a shir hadash, a new song, we are also very aware that some of us come to this space of community from a place of loss. And in our synagogue community, we're definitely welcoming here and holding you, Karen and Helen, in the same way that these hands in this image are holding this candle. And we say, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, may the Holy One comfort you. And this is a moment that you can tap into to feel even virtually the way that our community embraces you. At this point, we also transition into the main body of our service with Chatzi Kaddish. And that will take us into the standing prayer of Baruch Hu. Yitkata v'yitkata shmei Rabbah v'alma divra kirutei v'amnich malchutei b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chayedecho be'Yisrael b'hagala b'hagala ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ועולמי עולמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה ברכו. לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ועלמה, ואמרו אמן.
לילה, 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 Please be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhma potiach she'arim. God of creation, makes the evening fall from light into darkness with the setting of the sun. You unfold the heavens with brilliant moon and stars and wrap our souls with peace. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv
So at this point, seen with God's eyes, as our 6th and 7th graders have, to be inspired by people around us that exhibit those prophetic qualities, want to invite first Delilah to read the first slide. And I don't know if Ariana, Taylor, or Warren are on the call, but if you are, you can. Okay, wonderful. So Ariana, you'll do the second slide. Go ahead, Delilah.
For me, forgiveness and compassion are always linked. How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed? Bell hooks.
A little louder.
Oh, sorry.
Just louder. Yes, keep going, please.
All right. When it comes to human dignity, we cannot make compromises. Angela Merkel. Real change, enduring change, happens one step at a time. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. A life is not important except in the impact it has on other lives. Jackie Robinson.
Beautiful. And the next slide, go ahead, Ariana.
You may not always have a comfortable life, and you will not always be able to solve all of the world's problems at once, but don't ever underestimate the importance you can have, because history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. Michelle Obama. Imperfect though we may be, I believe we are a great country, and part of what makes us great is our democratic institutions that protect our fundamental ideals, freedom of religion and the rule of law, protection of discrimination based on national origin, freedom of the press, and a 200-year history as a nation built by immigrants. Kamala Harris. We believe we need to go back to basics as human beings. You see a vacuum and you fill it. I have great respect for anyone doing that, scientists, doctors, activists, anyone working for humanity. We have to see and treat each other as human beings, acknowledging and respecting who we are. That's how I like to be treated, and that's how I think I've lived my life. Everything I do comes from that place. Beverly Palisa Ditzy.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to do something a little different for Shema tonight. Our tradition invites us to Shema, to listen. But we can't just do that with our ears. We have to do that by looking up and seeing each other and paying attention to who we are in community with. And the blessing of this time is that we can all see one another. I'd like to guide you in the Shema using sign language tonight. So I'm going to teach that to you. So let's have our hands near our face. And Shema, we bring our hands forward like this. Shema. Yisrael is with your pinky across your chin. And then we're going to bring all the people together. Yisrael. And God is everywhere. Adonai Eloheinu Adonai. The many become one. Echad. Let's try this from the beginning. Shema. Pay attention. Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. We continue with the words of the Ve'ahavta. Rabbi Kavod.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha ובכל מאותיך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Adonai Elohechem Emet. Taylor, if you would lead us here.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Martin Luther King Jr. The goal is not to be better than the other man, but your previous self. Dalai Lama. Through material science and process innovation, we are working to solve some of the greatest issues of our time: plastic pollution, the negative health impacts of plastic, and climate change. We're committed to moving quickly to meet global consumer needs for fiber-based, biodegradable, recyclable, and compostable products. Troy Swope, founder of a company called Footprint. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Frederick Douglass. The world is a place that is so interconnected that what happens is another part of the world will impact us. Anthony Fauci.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Taylor.
Do we have Warren here? If not, then I'll go ahead and read. There is still so much in the world worth fighting for, so much that is beautiful, so many wonderful people working to reverse the harm, to help alleviate the suffering, and so many young people dedicated to making this a better world, all conspiring to inspire us and to give us hope that it's not too late to turn things around if we all do our part. Jane Goodall. Civility is the recognition that all people have dignity that's inherent to their person, no matter their religion, race, gender, sexuality, or ability. Opal Tometi. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Anne Frank. And that's just a few of the modern prophets that our students have selected. With that inspiration, we'll move forward into Mi Chamocha.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Dorateiras, Oseh pele, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'a Yisrael.
Mark.
Thank you, Rabbi. Give us a place to rest, Adonai, our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, Aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. Beautiful, Mark. We're going to have you lead services more next time.
ברית עולם, ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. Invite you, if you are able, to rise for the Amidah. We begin the words with Adonai Sfatai, God, open my lips that I may declare your praise. Adonai Sfatai, tiftach. Adonai Sfatai, tiftach. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai Sfatai, tiftach. Adonai Sfatai, tiftach. Ufi yagid tehilatecha. Ufi yagid tehilatecha.
In this week's Parsha, Parshat Bo, the Israelites have just been freed from slavery, from Pharaoh. Pharaoh finally said, I'll let you go. And they're roasting the lamb as they've been directed by God, sitting around a fire, roasting Egypt's most sacred animal. And they are, imagine, they've been in one reality for all their lives, Pharaoh, slavery. And all of a sudden, the future is unknown. They're not going to be going back to building those pyramids, to that work. They're ready for an entirely new journey. It's this moment that I want to invite us into in our silent prayer, in our Amidah. That we are standing on the precipice of the unknown. We have nothing ahead of us but connection, depth, closeness to God, just like the journey of the Israelites. And can we let our prayer come from that reality, the reality of not knowing, but knowing that we are guided, that God is with us? You can join me in the Amidah. I'll do the first three prayers out loud, and then we can daven, pray silently together. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekone Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Lifnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Ata Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayem Hakol Ata Rav Lehoshia, Mashiv Haruach Umorid HaGashem, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofech Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishanei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umido melech, melech meimit umechaye, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'emanat halechayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol, Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el hakadosh.
Adonai Tsuri Regali.
Cantor Young, we are so blessed with your original prayer settings. That one just always touches me right here. I don't know if any of you can hear, but I can hear the rain outside. The blessings of rain is coming, at least where I am here in Aliso Viejo. And good to be with everybody on Shabbat. Some of us are still processing the shock of the assault on the Capitol building on January 6th. And it feels absolutely unbelievable because none of us have experienced anything like it in our adult life. Rabbi Daniel Hartman writes that the notion of the unbelievable enables us to preserve our myth of stability, which is so central to those of us fortunate enough to live in situations of political and material well-being. We operate within the myth that order and predictability, reason, decency, and common sense will prevail. And it's this myth that enables us to fall asleep at night and to wake up the next morning. But the truth is that any sense of stability and certainty that we may feel in the world actually has no firm basis. Even though we may have experienced stable years or decades or even a lifespan, the truth is that everything can change overnight. And we've witnessed this time and time again in Jewish history. At one point, Jerusalem was the capital of a Jewish state with the temple at its center, and then it was destroyed twice. Jews were significant members of Spanish society right up to the royal court, and then they were expelled from the country under the threat of death. Jews held influential positions in German society, and then Hitler came to power and they were purged. There are unfortunately many other examples to make this case. And we know, however, that the Holocaust, and most certainly the events on Capitol Hill, were not unbelievable. They not only happened, but they can happen again. The true lesson of the Holocaust is that evil is not unbelievable, and fascist and racist tendencies are not abnormal. We bear witness to the fact that humanity is capable of tremendous decency, kindness, and intellectual and moral greatness, as well as deep depravity and unconscionable evil. We cannot lure ourselves into complacency and potentially allow them to become the new normal. And yet we're here on Shabbat. We're here not to escape from reality, but to look at reality, to imagine what reality looks like through God's eyes. The ancient Hebrew prophets arose in Israel and Judah to shatter complacency. Through their connection with God, each of them were able to maintain a sustained focus on the suffering of the poor, to have a long-range view of the disaster that would come in the wake of profound endemic injustice. Lifted by divine inspiration, each prophet possessed the moral imagination to transcend the brokenness of his own day and envision an alternative society. Even in the midst of crisis and imminent disaster, the prophets could see an inclusive economic and social order in which all beings would flourish. Rabbi Nahum Ward Lev, one of my personal mentors, names 3 qualities that are inherent in every prophet: an encounter with divine love and concern for the world, courage to name oppression or instances where any human being is not treated as part of being in the divine image, and the moral imagination to articulate an alternative future. Our 6th and 7th grade class have been learning about our ancient Hebrew prophets, as you saw a little bit earlier. and seeking to recognize these prophetic qualities in modern day voices in order to draw inspiration and the realization that every one of us is called to this prophetic stream. Emma Abraham was inspired by Bell Hooks, a feminist theorist, cultural critic, artist, and writer, who seeks to show the way that our ideas about gender and race keep us from creating a more just society. Brady Ward is inspired by Opal Tometi, co-founder of Black Lives Matter. She has campaigned for advancing human rights, migrant rights, and racial justice worldwide, who work to make sure everyone is treated fairly. Taylor Fingerish is inspired by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Jewish woman who served as a Supreme Court justice for 27 years, helping to make huge advances in the areas of gender equality and women's rights. Delilah Lanier brings our attention to Beverly Palthia Ditsi, the founder of South Africa's first multiracial and political lesbian and gay rights group called GLOW. She focuses on helping people see lesbian rights as intimately linked to women's rights. And Jack Hers saw the late Jackie Robinson as someone with prophetic vision, not through speech or rhetoric, but refusing to let race get in the way of his success as a professional baseball player back in 1947. In foreseeing the dire consequences of climate change to life on this earth, Eli Cavallero was inspired by Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, who has put Germany on the road to 100% renewable resources and the promise to lower emissions. Warren Malkus appreciates the vision of Troy Swope, founder of Footprint, whose company's vision is to get rid of single-use plastic to address the harm in using non-renewable resources. Also, having a vision of the future that includes non-human life, Jake Palitz was inspired by Jane Goodall, an animal rights activist who saved many species of wildlife in Africa and educated and inspired people worldwide to expand their circle of concern. For Noah Page, Anthony Fauci stands out as someone who's willing to stand strong against misinformation and political influence in order to help our country get through this COVID-19 pandemic. These people and others are examples of modern day prophets that inspire our middle school students. They're examples that while it is absolutely true that the apparently solid ground under our feet is shifting, that realization does not leave us without a source of stability. As Jews, we have survived generation after generation by being shomrim, guardians of values like truth, humility, compassion, responsibility, generosity, and kindness. We are in a time where we not only need to guard these values, we need to fight for them, and not just for us, but for everyone in this country. The pulls that we may feel to abandon our loyalty to these traits because of the pressures of the moment need to be resisted. The means are as important, if not more, than the ends. If we are fighting for a world where everyone is treated as an expression of the divine image, then along with our firmness and commitment to justice, we need to embody respect, civility, and kindness. We have practiced being people who embody these qualities in every generation, no matter what the transient circumstances of the moment, and they've served to put solid ground under our feet, even as the earth around us buckles. Our Torah portion this week brings us to the moment when, after 10 brutal and painful plagues, Pharaoh finally agrees to let the Israelites go. Our tradition's greatest prophet, Moses, speaks to the entire people for the first time to try to share for them the great vision of what this moment means for them and what is necessary for the way forward. We have had great leaders throughout history that have made similar speeches to articulate the way forward in that moment of liberation. Abraham Lincoln, in the Gettysburg Address, invoked the memory of a new nation conceived in liberty and looked forward to a new birth of freedom. Nelson Mandela warned people of the dangers and challenges they would encounter on what he called the long walk to freedom. Towards the end of Exodus chapter 2, Moses refers to the same theme 3 different times in his speech: children and education. He says, when your children ask you, you shall say, or, and you shall explain to your child on that day. While we know that this speech becomes the basis for the ritual of our Passover Seder, the fact that Moses focuses on the education of our children in his first speech to the people upon their liberation is instructive as to what our focus should be. How do we pass on core Jewish values, the strength of relationships, and the concern for our people and all of humanity to our children? Yes, it's through our schools, religious and secular, but more importantly, it's through the way that we speak. It's the choices that we make and the actions that we take. As President Biden said eloquently in his inauguration speech, we don't need to make change in the world as an example of power, but through the power of our example. We can give our children a stability of spirit by showing them that when the world needs us most, we are there. Shabbat Shalom. At this moment, we invite you to bring to mind people in your life that are in need of healing, refuah shlema, whether that's healing of body, healing of mind, mental illness like addiction, or healing of spirit, of being able to feel hopeful in the world going as we go on. You can put the names of the people you'd like to bring healing to in the chat. And as we sing our healing prayer, we will have all of them in our minds and in our hearts.
I do want to make mention that this beautiful setting of Mishaberach was composed by another modern prophet, the late Debbie Friedman. She really paved the way for so many people to find their own expressions of music and prayer. And just as a young girl sitting down with her guitar at camp and wrestling with our texts to find herself and her voice in that. And this particular setting of Mishaberach was composed during the height of the AIDS epidemic and created a space for congregations far and wide to bring into the space of our prayer service the collective voice of our members to be able to share names of loved ones. So again, we invite you, if you have not already done so, if there are names of loved ones who are in need of healing, body, mind, or soul. Avotenu mekor bracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We have some exciting things coming up for our community over the next couple of weeks. I'm so excited. Thank you to our Bee Sisters and Men's Club for sponsoring tomorrow's musical evening in 2 acts. And we're going to be gathering together to do Havdalah first. So that's going to be a really amazing evening. Hope if you have not already registered, I believe you still can do that.
Beautiful. Very excited to do our next installment of Can We Talk? Building Relationships Through Disagreements, something that we really see is the only way forward. And one of the things that's significant is we're working with a national organization called Resetting the Table that works with communities, Jewish and secular, synagogues, whole communities with federations to help communities with courageous communication across divides. So this is a really wonderful opportunity for us to get to learn more about each other and to learn some skills about how to dialogue and have difficult conversations instead of letting those things divide us. I will say that you need to, if you want to participate, really sign up for all 3 of the sessions. They build upon each other. If you can't make one of the later sessions, that's fine, but need to at least make the first one on February 9th if you are going to participate. And you do pre-register. So when you pre-register, you get the Zoom link to be a part of it, and really, really hope that you will be able to join us for this really important event.
Wendy, while I can introduce this, I would love if you would share a little bit about this wonderful service that we're gathering for next week.
Thank you, Ken and Natalie. Next Shabbat, a week from tomorrow, is our annual Kol Isha Shabbat service. We are going virtual. You can register still at any time. Please join us. We will have the world-renowned Neshama Carlbach drashing, delivering words of Torah. We will have our Temple Bethel women leading. We will have our Kol Isha dancers. It will have everything that you would expect at a Kol Isha, and you can enjoy it from your home. Please register and be with us on that day. Thank you.
Beautiful. Please stand if you're able for Aleinu as we begin to conclude our service. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. You may either continue standing or sit, whatever is your custom for Mourner's Kaddish. We are recalling our loved ones who death has recently taken from us. Stephen Anschel, brother of our member Helen Lawrence. Rosalind Fells, mother of our member Stuart Fells. Lou Einbund, beloved member and father of our member Karen Gray. Shirley Primack Banks, mother of our member Karen Chernin. Melvin Engelman, the father of our member Susie Engelman. This is all within our Shiva and Shloshim periods. We're also commemorating the following yahrzeits: John Simon Berman, Albert Bragg, Solomon Brandwain, Aaron Brunswick, Carmen Cohen, Marvin Crane, Wilbur Diamond, Kurt Dreschler, Robert Joseph Frank, Rena Frank, Isaac Goldberg, Sherman Greengus, Stanley Roland Hocum, Seymour Carpel, Ann Kiefer, Claire Kirschenbaum, Fred Kovacs, Idale Levenberg, William Levine, Aaron Lipton, Dr. Joanne Markman, Bella Olitsky, Manya Palmer, Marion Phillips, Shirley Reingold, Lila Robinson, Herman Rubel, Fred Salser, Maurice Schachtel, Sarah Cohan Sadij, Faye Smolinski, Norman Snyder, Nina Noon Springer, Martha Stewart, Mr. James Sweet, Donald Taylor, Rose Weinberg. If there's anybody else that you're saying Kaddish for today, please feel free to put their name in the chat. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach yeruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei techol beit Yisrael, b'agalau v'zman kariv imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brechu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru
If you have a glass of wine or juice and would like to join me in Kiddush as we sanctify this moment of Shabbat, please join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh Zecher litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta Eotanu kidashta Mikol ha'amim V'shabbat kodshecha Be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh Hashabbat. L'chaim. If you've got some challah Hold it up. That braided bread is like all of us, our connection together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, v'te'avon. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Such a pleasure to